always knew I was invisible in my own family, but I never thought my sister would try to make me disappear for good. It was my 29th birthday. The setting was breathtaking, a vineyard estate in Napa Valley, rented out for the weekend. The air smelled like expensive wine and lavender. My sister, Emma, had insisted on throwing the party. "You deserve it," she'd said, smiling that dazzling smile that could charm anyone. The candles on the cake flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the white tablecloth. Everyone sang, their voices a cheerful chorus. My mother, Angela, was filming on her phone, ensuring the lighting was perfect for her Instagram story. My stepfather, Brian, was chatting with a business partner, barely glancing my way. And just as I leaned forward to make a wish, closing my eyes for a second of quiet hope, I felt hands on my back. Emma grabbed the cake with both hands and slammed it into my face. But she didn't just push. She shoved with a force that snapped my head backward. I stumbled, my heels catching on the cobblestones. I heard the crack before I felt it, my skull hitting the edge of the stone fountain behind me. Then warmth spreading through my hair, blood mixing with vanilla frosting. The room spun through blurred vision. I saw my sister's face above me, and for 1 second, before she rearranged her expression into fake concern, I saw something that made my stomach turn cold. She was smiling. "Oh my God, Melissa, are you okay?" Her voice was shrill, performative. "It was just a joke. You're so dramatic." Laughter rippled through the guests, uncertain at first, then relieved as Emma framed it as a prank gone wrong. But the pain radiating from the back of my head was real. The metallic taste of blood in my mouth was real. And the look in Emma's eyes, that was the most real thing of all. I have to ask, have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people who are supposed to love you? Drop a yes in the comments if you know exactly what that feels like. The world was still spinning when Angela's heels clicked across the stone patio. I looked up, expecting her arms, her concern, maybe even a flash of anger at Emma. Instead, her eyes narrowed, scanning not my face, but the blood dripping onto the limestone. "Look what you've done," she hissed, her voice low and sharp. "You're bleeding on the stone. Do you have any idea how much the deposit is for this venue? Get up, Melissa. Stop making a scene." She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin, and hauled me to my feet. The movement sent a fresh wave of nausea through me, but I didn't pull away. I let her guide me, not to a car or an ambulance, but away from the guests, toward the back of the estate. "Sorry everyone," Emma called out brightly from behind us. "Just a little slip. You know how clumsy she is." We reached a storage room near the catering kitchen. Angela shoved me inside and handed me a stack of cocktail napkins. "Sit here," she commanded. "Clean yourself up. And for God's sake, don't come back out until you look presentable. We can't have you ruining the photos." She closed the door. The latch clicked, sealing me in the dim light. Outside, the party roared back to life, music, laughter, the clink of expensive glassware. I sat on a crate of wine, pressing the napkins to the back of my head. They were already soaked through, warm and sticky. My head throbbed with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat, a dull, heavy pounding against my skull. This is my role, I thought, the realization settling in colder than the stone floor. Fixer. Since I was a child, I had been the one to smooth things over. When Emma crashed her car, I was the one who drove her to community service. When Angela overspent on her boutique, I was the one who balanced the books late into the night. I absorbed their chaos so they could shine. I was the structural support beam they were slowly drilling holes into. And tonight I had finally cracked. The silence in the room was heavy, smelling of dust and old cardboard. I wasn't keeping the peace, I realized. I was keeping their secrets. And tonight, the secret was that my sister had hurt me, and my mother didn't care. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Emma. "Come back out when you're done sulking. People are asking where the birthday girl is. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word they used whenever I had a need. I stood up, swaying slightly. The room tilted, but I found my balance. I looked at the blood on my hands. This wasn't an accident. And I wasn't going to just wipe it away this time. I walked out the back exit, bypassing the party entirely. The cool night air hit my face, shocking my system. I got into my car, my vision blurring at the edges, and drove away from the vineyard, away from the laughter, away from the people who claimed to love me. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. The road stretched out before me, dark and winding. My head pounded with every bump, a constant reminder of the crack against the stone. But for the first time in my life, the pain felt like clarity. That night, lying in my own bed in my city loft, ice pressed against my skull, I made a promise to myself. No more fixing. No more silence. If they wanted a scene, I would give them one they would never forget. The next morning, the headache had evolved into a blinding pressure behind my eyes. My vision kept doubling at the edges, like a camera lens refusing to focus. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I drove myself to the emergency room, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, navigating the city streets through a haze of nausea. The ER was busy, a chaotic hum of voices and machines. But when I mentioned the head injury and the dizziness, they took me back quickly. A nurse checked my vitals, her expression professional but kind. Then Dr. Matthews walked in. He was older, with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He examined the wound on the back of my head, his touch gentle but clinical. He ordered X-rays and a CT scan immediately. I lay still in the cold imaging room, listening to the machine whir around me, wondering how I was going to explain this to my boss. I had a site visit on Monday. I was already calculating the logistics, still trying to manage the inconvenience of my own pain. When Dr. Matthews returned, the professional pleasantness was gone from his face. He looked grave. He pulled up images on the computer screen and turned it so I could see. "Melissa," he said, his voice serious. "You have a hairline fracture to your skull from the impact last night. It's painful, but it should heal with rest. However, that's not what concerns me most." He clicked to a different image, one showing my wrist and orbital bone. "Do you see these areas here?" His finger traced faint white lines on the bone. "These are healed microfractures. The calcification suggests they happened over a period of years. The orbital bone injury looks to be about 5 years old. The wrist maybe 3. 5 years ago, I remembered a prank where Emma had tripped me on a hiking trail. I'd fallen face first onto a rock. "You're so clumsy," she'd laughed. 3 years ago, a playful wrestling match by the pool where she'd bent my wrist back until I screamed. "Stop being a baby," Angela had said. "I thought I was just clumsy," I whispered. Dr. Matthews sat down, looking me in the eye. "The brain is very good at normalizing trauma to survive it," he said softly. "Especially when that trauma comes from people we trust. We tell ourselves stories to make sense of the pain." "Clumsy" was a joke. But bones don't lie, Melissa. These aren't accidents. This is a pattern. The trap of normalization. The concept hit me harder than the pavement had. I had been the frog in the boiling water, accepting the heat because it rose slowly, degree by degree, year by year. I hadn't seen the abuse because it was woven into the fabric of my daily life, disguised as family dynamics. "There's something else," Dr. Matthews said, pulling a paper from his clipboard. "We ran a standard toxicology screen because of the head trauma. Your blood work shows the presence of benzodiazepines and a mild hallucinogen." The room went silent. The hum of the hospital faded away. "What? Are you taking any prescription medication for anxiety or sleep?" "My mother, she gives me supplements. For my nerves. She says I'm high-strung. I take them before every family event." "These aren't supplements," he said grimly. "These are powerful sedatives. And combined with the hallucinogen, they would cause dizziness, confusion, poor coordination. They would make you clumsy. The world tilted on its axis. The anxiety meds Angela insisted I take. The vitamins Emma gave me when we went on trips. They hadn't just been gaslighting me emotionally. They had been chemically engineering my instability. They were drugging me. My mother facilitated it. My sister executed it. And for years I had walked around in a chemical fog, believing I was the broken one. "This is assault," Dr. Matthews said. "And poisoning. I have to report this." "Do it," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, cold, detached. The fear was gone, replaced by a crystalline rage. "Report everything." I left the hospital with a folder of evidence on the passenger seat and a prescription for painkillers I had no intention of taking. The drive back to my loft was a blur, the city skyline smearing through my tears. But they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of fury, hot and sharp. I parked my car and walked into my building, the lobby cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the storm inside my head. I needed to think. I needed a plan. My phone rang. It wasn't my mother or Emma. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello, Melissa. This is Arthur Penhaligon. I was your grandmother Margaret's attorney." "Grandmother Margaret." She had passed away 6 months ago. She was the only one who had ever really seen me, the only one who hadn't bought into the clumsy Melissa narrative. Hearing her name now felt like a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. "I've been trying to reach you," Arthur said, his voice brisk but kind. "There are some things we need to discuss regarding your grandmother's estate. Specifically, a blind trust she established for you. A trust. The Lake House estate. And a significant financial portfolio. It's all yours, Melissa. Value is approximately $1.8 million. But there were conditions. Your grandmother stipulated that the trust could only be revealed if you showed proof of competence, or if you were in imminent danger." "Imminent danger." "She was worried about you," Arthur said gently. "She suspected things. She left instructions. And frankly, after hearing through channels about the incident at the vineyard, I believe the condition of danger has been met." Lake House. It was a sanctuary, a beautiful property 3 hours north, secluded and peaceful. And it was mine. $1.8 million. It was freedom. It was an escape route. "But there's a complication," Arthur continued, his voice tightening. "Your mother and sister, they've filed a petition." The air left the room. "A petition for what?" "For emergency guardianship. They filed this morning. They're citing your public breakdown at the party and your history of instability. They're trying to take control of your affairs, Melissa, before you can claim the inheritance." The pieces clicked into place with a terrifying precision. The drugging, the public humiliation, the narrative of my mental instability. It wasn't just cruelty. It was a strategy. They were building a case. They wanted to declare me incompetent so they could control the money Grandma left me. They weren't just trying to break me. They were trying to own me. "Can you stop them?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Can try. But we need evidence. We need to prove you're sound of mind and that they are the ones who are dangerous." "I have evidence," I said, looking at the medical folder on my table. "I have the medical reports, the toxicology results. That's a start. But we might need more. Your grandmother, she left something else for you. Digital safe. She said the key was something only you would remember." Digital safe. Grandma Margaret had been a meticulous record keeper. "I know the code," I said. "But access it. Whatever is in there, she thought it might save you." I hung up and walked to my laptop. The digital safe was a secure cloud drive Grandma had shown me once, years ago. "For your eyes only," she'd whispered. The password was the date of the only day she'd taken me on a trip, just the two of us, a trip my mother had been furious about. I typed in the numbers. The folder opened. Inside, there was a single subfolder titled The Shadow Diary. I clicked the folder open. It wasn't just a few files. It was a comprehensive archive. Videos, scanned journal pages, audio recordings. The date stretched back over a decade. I opened the first video file, dated 15 years ago. The grainy footage showed a teenage Emma standing in the kitchen, her back to the camera, which must have been hidden on a bookshelf. She was pouring a clear liquid into a glass of orange juice. She turned, looked straight through the lens, unaware she was being watched, and smiled. It was a cold, empty smile that made the hair on my arms stand up. Then I opened a scanned journal entry. April 14th. Angela knows. I saw her watching Emma switch the pills. She didn't stop her. She just turned away. My daughter is aiding a predator. My breath hitched. Grandma had known. She had seen it all. And she had documented it. I clicked through file after file. A video of Emma deliberately knocking over a ladder while I was painting the porch, then crying fake tears. An audio recording of Angela on the phone. Her voice calm and chilling. "If she thinks she's sick, she'll never leave. We need her here to handle the grunt work." It was a library of malice. A meticulously curated museum of their cruelty. And it was my weapon. I sat back, the glow of the screen illuminating my face in the dark loft. The fear that had been my constant companion for years began to dissolve, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They wanted to play games with my life. They wanted to paint me as the unstable one. Fine. I would give them a show. I picked up my phone and texted Angela. "I'm sorry about the party. I know I've been difficult. Can you and Emma come over? I want to sign the papers. Think I need help." The response was immediate. "We're so relieved you're being sensible, darling. We'll be there in an hour." They thought they had won. They thought I was broken, ready to be folded back into their control. I stood up and walked to the mirror. The bruise on my forehead was dark and angry, a physical testament to their abuse. But my eyes were clear. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I wasn't the scapegoat. I was the executioner. I set up my own cameras. One in the living room, hidden in the leaves of a potted plant. One in the kitchen. I synced them to my cloud storage, ensuring every second would be preserved. Then I waited. I sat on my sofa, hands folded in my lap, breathing steadily. The silence in the loft was no longer heavy. It was expectant. The stage was set. The players were arriving. And this time I had written the script. The doorbell rang exactly an hour later. I opened it to find Angela and Emma standing there, looking perfectly composed. Angela held a file folder, the guardianship papers. Emma held a latte, looking bored, as if this were just another inconvenient errand. "Melissa," Angela said, sweeping in with a performative sigh. "Look at you. You look exhausted." "I am," I said, letting my voice tremble slightly. "I'm so tired, Mom." "We know," Emma said, stepping inside and looking around my loft with a critical eye. "That's why we're doing this. To help you." They sat on my sofa. I sat across from them. "So," Angela said, opening the folder, "this is just a formality. It gives us the power to make medical and financial decisions for you until you're better." "Better?" "Yes. Stable," Emma corrected. "You know how you get. The fainting spells. The clumsiness. It's getting dangerous, Mel. You could have really hurt yourself at the party." "I did hurt myself," I said. "I have a skull fracture." "See," Angela said. "You're a danger to yourself. Is that why you give me the pills?" I asked softly. Angela froze. "What pills?" "The anxiety meds. The vitamins." "Those are to help you relax," Emma said quickly. "You're always so wound up." "And the dizziness. The confusion. Side effects of your condition," Angela said smoothly. "You've always been fragile." "My condition," I repeated. "Or the side effects of the sedatives and hallucinogens found in my blood work this morning." The silence in the room was sudden and absolute. Emma's hand paused halfway to her mouth with her latte. Angela's face went slack. "I went to the ER," I said, my voice hardening. "They ran a tox screen. I tested positive for benzodiazepines and psilocybin. I haven't taken any drugs knowingly." "Which means you've been poisoning me." "That's ridiculous," Angela sputtered, but her eyes were darting around the room. "You must have taken something yourself and forgotten. That's part of your problem." "Is it?" I stood up and walked to the TV screen on the wall. "Because Grandma Margaret didn't think so." I pressed a button on my remote. The screen flared to life. The video from 15 years ago began to play. "Emma poisoning my juice." Emma gasped. "Where did you get that?" "Grandma saw you," I said. "She saw everything. She kept a diary. Shadow diary." I clicked to the next file. The audio recording of Angela. "If she thinks she's sick, she'll never leave." Angela's face turned ashen. She stood up, reaching for the folder on the table. "This is illegal. You can't record us." "Grandma recorded you," I said. "I'm just playing it back." "Give me that," Emma snarled, lunging toward the TV. "It's already in the cloud," I said. "And sent to the police." "And the family group chat." Their phones buzzed simultaneously. Then again. And again. The notifications were rolling in. "You didn't," Angela whispered. "I did. And I'm currently live streaming this conversation to my private server, just in case you decide to get physical." Emma looked at me with pure hatred. The mask was gone. The bored socialite was replaced by a feral animal. "You bitch," she hissed. "You ungrateful, pathetic little." "Careful," I said. "The police are on their way." "You're bluffing," Angela said. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. "Am I?" I looked at them, the women who were supposed to protect me, who had instead farmed me for my labor and my sanity. "You wanted to declare me incompetent so you could take Grandma's estate. But you forgot one thing. Grandma knew you better than anyone." The sirens cut beneath the building. Blue lights flashed against the windows. "The police are here to arrest you for assault and poisoning," I said. "An attempted fraud." Angela sank back onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands. Emma stood frozen, staring at the screen where her younger self was pouring poison into a glass. "It's over," I said. "The fixer is retired." The police knocked on the door, a heavy, authoritative sound. I walked past my mother and sister without looking back. "Open the door." "Officers," I said. "They're right in here." Watching them be led away in handcuffs was a surreal experience. Angela was weeping, playing the victim until the end. Emma was silent, her face a mask of cold fury. I stood in the doorway of my loft, watching the elevator doors close on my old life. Months later, the dust had finally settled. The legal battle had been swift and brutal. With the shadow diary and the medical evidence, their defense crumbled. Emma took a plea deal for assault and reckless endangerment to avoid a lengthy prison sentence. Angela was implicated as an accessory and faced probation and a shattered reputation. The family name was mud in our social circles. The friends who had attended the party and laughed at my fall now claimed they had always suspected something was wrong. I didn't care about their opinions. I was busy. I drove up the winding road to the lake house. It was even more beautiful than I remembered. Tall pines, a glassy lake reflecting the sky, a sprawling timber-framed house that smelled of cedar and peace. But it wasn't just my home anymore. I parked the car and walked up the steps. The sign by the door read, "The Margaret Sanctuary." I had used the inheritance to renovate the property. It was now a retreat for women recovering from narcissistic abuse and medical gaslighting. A place where they could come to heal, to be believed, to find their footing again. I walked inside. The main room was filled with light. A group of women sat in a circle by the fireplace, talking. One of them looked up as I entered. She had a bruise on her cheek, fading but visible. "Welcome," I said. She smiled, tentative but hopeful. "Thank you for having me. You're safe here," I said. "And you're not crazy. And you're not clumsy." I walked to the kitchen to start the tea. I looked out the window at the lake. The water was calm. I wasn't the invisible sister anymore. I wasn't the victim. I was the builder. I was the lighthouse keeper. And for the first time in 29 years, when I looked in the mirror, I recognized the woman staring back. She was strong. She was whole. And she was free. If this story resonated with you, please share it. You never know who on your friends list might be silently suffering in a glass house of their own. And if you've ever broken free from a toxic cycle, tell me your victory moment in the comments below.